August 6, 1945. The sky over Hiroshima was clear. Just another morning. People were heading to work, children walking to school, shopkeepers opening their stores. Life was moving, as usual, in a city that had no idea what was coming. Then, at exactly 8:15 a.m., everything changed. A single American B-29 bomber, the Enola Gay, flew high above the city. It carried something the world had never seen before, a new kind of bomb, built in secret, tested only once. Its name was Little Boy. When the bomb fell, it took 43 seconds to reach the ground, and then silence turned into light. A blinding flash lit up the sky. In an instant, a fireball hotter than the surface of the sun consumed the heart of Hiroshima. Buildings vanished, streets melted, people simply disappeared. What followed was a massive shockwave and a deadly black rain of radioactive ash. In less than a minute, tens of thousands were gone, and those who survived faced something even worse: burns, sickness, and a horror no one had words for. The world had changed forever. For the first time in history, humanity had unleashed a weapon that could destroy an entire city in seconds. Before the atomic bomb, the world was already on fire. World War II had been raging for 6 long years. Millions were dead. Cities across Europe and Asia were reduced to rubble. But in the summer of 1945, the war in Europe was finally over. Nazi Germany had surrendered. Hitler was gone, yet, in the Pacific, the war was still going. Japan refused to give up, even though they were losing ground. Their army kept fighting. Their soldiers were trained to never surrender, and their leaders believed dying for the emperor was the highest honor. The United States knew that defeating Japan would not be easy. They had already taken island after island, places like Iwo Jima and Okinawa, but at a terrible cost. Thousands of American soldiers had died, and for every battle won, Japan fought harder. The US was planning a full invasion of Japan, but they knew it would be brutal. Military experts estimated that it could take a year, maybe more, and the death toll could be in the millions on both sides. At the same time, Japan was suffering. Its cities were being bombed daily. Food was running out. Its navy was nearly gone. But still, Japan's leaders would not surrender. They hoped for a better peace deal. Or maybe the Soviet Union would help negotiate one. What they didn't know was that America had already built a secret weapon. One that could end the war in a single blow. A weapon powered not by fire, but by splitting atoms. The world before the bomb was already broken. But what came next would take things into terrifying new territory. When America decided to use the atomic bomb, the next question was where. Not just any city would be chosen. The target had to be important enough to justify the weapon, but it also had to be untouched. A place where the bomb's full power could be seen and measured. Hiroshima was picked first. It wasn't the biggest city in Japan, but it mattered. Hiroshima was a major military center. It had army headquarters, supply depots, and factories making weapons, but it was also a city of civilians. Around 300,000 people lived there. There were other options. Cities like Kokura, Niigata, and even Kyoto were on the target list. But Kyoto was removed at the last minute. It was Japan's ancient capital, a place filled with culture, temples, and history. One US official argued it would do too much damage to Japan's spirit, so it was spared. That left Hiroshima. That had not been heavily bombed yet, so it was a clean target. The US wanted to see what the atomic bomb could really do, without interference from earlier destruction. And it was perfectly located, flat, surrounded by mountains, and easy to spot from the air. Military leaders believed the shock wave would bounce off the hills and make the blast even more deadly. 3 days after Hiroshima, the second bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. But Nagasaki wasn't the original plan. The target that day was supposed to be Kyoto. When the plane reached it, heavy clouds covered the city. The crew circled 3 times, but couldn't see the target clearly. With fuel running low, they turned to the backup. Nagasaki was also a military hub. It had shipyards, war factories, and tens of thousands of civilians. At 11:02 a.m., the second atomic bomb, nicknamed Fat Man, was dropped. Just like Hiroshima, the city vanished in an instant. Some still ask, why 2 bombs? Why so fast? The truth is, America wanted to shock Japan into surrender. They feared if they waited, Japan would think the US only had 1 bomb. Dropping the second so quickly was a message. We can keep doing this, and the message was heard. Hiroshima and Nagasaki were chosen not just for their military value, but because they could send a clear, brutal warning. 1. The world would never forget. It was a Monday in Hiroshima. The day began like any other. The sky was clear. People were waking up, eating breakfast, heading to work or school. Children were playing in the streets. No one knew what was coming. 7:09 a.m., an air raid siren sounded. A single plane had been spotted. But after a few minutes, the all clear was given. It didn't seem like an attack. That plane was the Enola Gay, a B-29 bomber, flying high above the city. Inside was a bomb, unlike any ever used before. It was called Little Boy, and it carried the power of over 15,000 tons of TNT. At 8:15 a.m., the bomb was dropped. It took just 43 seconds to fall. Then light a flash so bright, People miles away thought the sun had exploded. The temperature at the center of the blast reached over 1,000,000 degrees. In a fraction of a second, the city was on fire. The explosion created a shockwave that leveled buildings, crushed homes, and shattered glass for miles. The heat set everything ablaze: wood, paper, people. Those who were close to the blast simply vanished. Others were burned beyond recognition. Many died instantly. Others screamed in pain as they tried to escape the flames. Then came the black rain, radioactive soot mixed with smoke and ash, falling from the sky like poison. The people who survived the blast were now breathing it in, drinking it, covered in it in just a few minutes. Tens of thousands were dead. Hospitals were destroyed. Doctors and nurses were gone. There was no help. The injured wandered the streets, their skin peeling, their bodies burned, looking for water or shelter. Some survivors later said, "It felt like the end of the world, but this was only the beginning." 3 days after Hiroshima, Japan still had not surrendered. Its leaders were divided. Some wanted to end the war. Others believed they could still fight on or get better peace terms. They didn't fully understand what had happened in Hiroshima War, refused to believe it, but the United States had already made its decision. A second bomb was ready. Early on the morning of August 9, 1945, another B-29 bomber, named Boxcar, took off. Its target was the city of Kuk. But when the plane arrived, the city was covered in smoke and clouds. The crew circled for almost an hour, trying to find a clear view. Fuel was running low. They couldn't wait any longer, so they turned to the backup target. Nagasaki was a port city. It had shipyards, factories, and thousands of workers making weapons and supplies for the Japanese military. But like Hiroshima, it was also full of civilians. At 11:02 a.m., the bomb, nicknamed Fat Man, was dropped. It missed its target slightly and exploded in a valley. The hills around Nagasaki helped contain the blast, but the damage was still massive. The explosion destroyed homes, schools, churches, and factories. A firestorm swept through the city. Around 40,000 people were killed instantly. Thousands more would die from injuries and radiation in the days and months that followed. People who survived described it as total chaos. Smoke filled the sky. Bodies were everywhere. The wounded cried out for help, but there was almost no one left to help them. By the time Japan realized what had happened, 2 cities were gone. 2 bombs had changed everything, and now the choice was clear: surrender or face more. After Nagasaki, Japan was in shock. 2 cities had been destroyed in just 3 days. Tens of thousands of people were dead. Others were dying slowly, burned, poisoned by radiation, or trapped under rubble. Survivors walked through ruins that didn't look real. At first, Japan's leaders still couldn't agree on what to do. Some wanted to fight on. They believed surrender was worse than death. Others, especially those who had seen the destruction, knew it had to end. Then came more news. The Soviet Union had declared war on Japan and invaded from the north. Now Japan was surrounded. American forces from the south, Soviet forces from the north, and a weapon that could wipe out entire cities. In seconds, for the first time, Emperor Hirohito spoke directly to the Japanese people. On August 15, 1945, his voice was heard on the radio across the country. He didn't use the word surrender, but he said Japan must endure the unendurable and accept peace to prevent total destruction. The war was over. People cried, some in relief, some in shame, some simply didn't know what to feel. For many, this was the first time they had heard the emperor's voice. On September 2, 1945, Japan formally surrendered aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay. The Second World War, the deadliest war in history, was finally over. But this was not just the end, it was the beginning of a new world. A world where the bomb was real, where peace would always carry the shadow of what happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki.